Alrighty, guys, I just saw the brand new Hunger Games prequel, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it was okay. It was just okay. I came into this movie with a mentality of little to no bias, because I have only seen the very first film. I have only seen the first Hunger Games movie, and I was just like in the mood to go see a movie, and I just picked this one. This was directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed most of the other Hunger Games movies that I did not see. And along with I Am Legend and Constantine, which I actually kind of like. But I came at this movie with no bias, no mindset, just completely like, let me just go see this movie. I might be lost, I might not be lost, who knows? Growing up, I was more of like a Harry Potter kid rather than a Hunger Games person. While none of those movies are really perfect, they have a special place in my heart. I know that there are people who are really huge fans of this, and we're really excited. There's a big fan base in terms of these movies, these types of movies that have like a huge like book teenage teenage book audience, like Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Maze Runner's another one. But this movie is 2.5 hours long. Pacing's not that bad, I will say. Pacing's aren't ba is not bad. It is broken up into three parts before, during, and after the Hunger Games, so there's a clear distinction of where the plot goes. But overall, I really felt this was like just a book movie. And I know it's like a weird like terminology to use, but it definitely was like a movie that was so exposition heavy. Everything every character says is to tell you information, to let you know what's happening, or who does this, or whose ideas are without showing it, or like saying it through clever dialogue. There are plenty of moments where characters will just straight up say, "That's the rich guy's kid. That's this person. This is this happening. This is the person that knows this. I don't do this because of this." But not really doing it in a clever manner or way, and just really kind of dumbing down the audience. Well, it helped me for sure because I didn't know what the fuck was happening when I was watching this. I didn't know where the plot and story was. But I feel like in that sense, it did a good job of keeping me going. Well, like being exposition heavy, I did find that as an issue, but it helped me go along with the movie. Um, you like with all this exposition and dialogue. Um, Another part of it that like plays with it is how the characters, all their actions are symbolic and are to tell a message rather than be real. Like every time it was in the Hunger Games, like people would do things like take all the bodies and cover them, or like kill the person before freeing them, or like making a message, and everyone's like all posing all the time and trying to be really dramatic when it just comes off as cheesy, and I don't really get why someone would do that. And this coincides with how every character and even the movie itself feels so fake, and it doesn't really come off as genuine. And I know this is like a fantasy, just kind of dystopian movie, but no one acts like a real person. It could have like reflected on the society of how like fake everyone is, how fake the Citadel and the rich people compared to the people in the districts and how they act, but it's mainly just the movie just comes off as cheap with costume and characters and visuals, and I expected a lot from like the Citadel being all this like grand area where they're the top of the world, and punishing all these poor people, but nothing really stood out visually. Nothing really stood out, you know, well to me, but it just didn't really come off as genuine to me. And yeah, another aspect I didn't like was the actual sets and the visual depictions of the outside areas. Everything looked like it was in a green screen. Everything looked like it was like somewhat dimly lit, so where no one area looked like a full complete like building. Everything looked like a corner of a room. Every time we were inside like uh the Hunger Games viewing room where all the students were like watching the mentors and all that stuff, nothing seemed like a genuine like place. Everything seemed like a green screen. There was no like establishing shot that showed a lot. It just showed enough to where it looked like a place, which to me didn't feel like a place. A lot of these places seemed like green screens. A lot of these, like a lot of the huge establishing shots of the whole Citadel or the Hunger Games outside area or the inside area, it just all felt like parts of it and then expanded upon with a green screen and digital effects and nothing really seemed real. There are exceptions, of course, when in the third act when we're in this wilderness area, a lot of the wilderness areas look really good because you could tell that they were actual real outside locations instead of like a fake giant statue or a fake giant building. And a lot of it seemed fake. You know, a lot of the buildings didn't seem like real. And I will say, like, while most of the aspects are just okay, not good, not great, you know, the dialogue, the acting, the visuals, I think the audio and score is just so overbearing. It a lot of times when characters are speaking or there's a over dramatic moment, the music tells you this by how loud it is or how annoying it is, how over like, oh my God, we're in an action chase scene, so let's play this, you know, no, 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 like really annoying scene. But I feel like the sound design and the music can really affect the tone of a movie, and the tone of this movie just didn't match up. You know, some parts it was like a comedy, some parts it was an action movie, some parts it was a thriller, some parts it was a drama. It, was hard to tell what this whole movie was trying to say or about. While it was like entertaining, it would just wasn't, you know, it wasn't clear what this movie was trying to be. And I think that really like is hard to keep a movie 2.5 hours while not feeling its tone or knowing what it's about or what it's trying to say. Um, you know, another aspect, this being a PG-13 movie, you know, uh, and a movie about poor people killing each other for rich people's amusement. There's zero gore, you know, zero blood, which is not saying that, you know, you need a movie to be rated R to have good action, good movies, you know, because, you know, there's no such thing as, you know, a good PG-13 movie, I guess. But you can always make it work. There's plenty of examples of this. There's so many good PG-13 movies with good action, good scores, good music, good visuals that play with it. You know, you don't have to make a movie rated R to be good, of course, but they didn't show anything with this movie. They didn't make anything seem genuine. There was no tension with any of the characters or any of the district members, you know, in the Hunger Games. It just didn't seem real. Nothing seemed like real. Nothing had stakes. Nothing had tension to it. Um, you know, and going back to the cast, I actually liked the small casting. There's some really big hitters. You know, Peter Dinklage, Hunter Schafer, Jason Schwartzman, Viola Davis, a lot of good names. And the main two individuals, the Tom Blythe, Rachel Zegler, they were good. Just nothing was great, nothing was bad. You know, she sang a lot, and he was uh, wanting money. He wants money. That's, you know, it works. You know, it's fine though. It was really interesting seeing where this main character was going, what he was trying to do with his money and his family and trying to save them. It came a little confusing at the end to understand like what his motives are because I feel like they were trying to do like a big twist, big reveal. That oh man, he was, you know, all he really cared about his family the whole time. He'd do anything for money. He'd do anything, you know, even though he, you know, made the Hunger Games keep going and made it worse for people. He all he did was for his family, which was it is a cool like twist to his character and an interesting moment for his character, but it wasn't really played well in the third act. It didn't really have any weight to it in the third act. It just happened more or less, and you know, there could have been a really good twist, like oh he didn't really care about anything. He just wanted to do this, but you know, it just came like he came off to be really inconsistent at times, sometimes. And like I said, the three acts of this movie, you know, before the Hunger Games with the main character meeting the girl, and then during the Hunger Games trying to keep her alive and keep her to win, and then after where he's trying to meet up with her and he's in like, an army. I found the third act to be really a lot more interesting, a lot more cohesive. I found that the way that, you know, where are we going with the story? Trying to see him figure stuff out is really interesting, but it, you know, comes off a little short. There's like a moment like 2 hours in where I was like, I forgot what I was watching a Hunger Games movie because of how, you know, we're at a cabin jumping around in the lake and being silly, but it was like, what is really happening right now? Um, it was, I feel like this could have been great with its character if it oriented more towards the main character, but it kind of like shifts here and there to, and like changes to try and like be more about the Hunger Games or more about the message of the movie and all this stuff, but it just it it could have been a lot like a more if it focused on as like a character study of this individual who worked and did anything he could for his family, for money, and for what he, you know, he's ruthless, and in doing so, caused the Hunger Games to prevented the Hunger Games from being obsolete and made this a more lifelong event that affected others and made changes to it to make it going. You know, showing the consequences of his actions is really interesting, but it just doesn't really hold enough weight for what it does. It should have been, I feel like it should have been more about this character instead of more about all these other characters in the Hunger Games. It just, you know, I feel like it falls a little flat. I like while I did enjoy the pacing of it after 2.5 hours, I feel like this could have been a really cool like three-parter or like miniseries. You know, it could have been cut up like that. I feel like they might do that. Um, but you know, I didn't I didn't dislike this movie. I didn't like it a lot, but I think it worked for what it was worth. You know, it definitely was entertaining. I wasn't bored watching it. I wasn't, you know, annoyed watching it. I was just like, this is fine. This is all right, you know. But it was fun, but not really something I would watch again, like go into again. You know, I might watch the other Hunger Games movies now to see where this really goes, but not really looking forward to seeing this again. But I think it was fun. I'm feeling like a 6 out of 10 on this one. Thank you so much. Have a good one.